Oh my gosh, this is such a hard question. I would probably have wanted to write Ribs by Lord. My variation of Lord songs changes, but I'm trying to think of something that was like so iconic and descriptive of like a time period. That's probably one I really would have wanted to write for sure.
Now I'm too wasted, my body's shaking, the walls are changing. I think I got a nosebleed and she's holding my hair back. The party's over, let's find another. I'm tearing down the concrete screaming, but I want it back.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another one of CONVOS. Today joining us is a rising artist who we are very excited to talk to, Caroline Romano. Thank you for joining us and taking the time out.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
So first off, for all our watchers, listeners, whatever that might not be familiar with you, we like to kind of, go into your background a little bit, see how you got into music, kind of. So from the start, like, where are you from and like, how did you first kind of start getting into music?
Yeah, so originally I was born and raised in Mississippi, and I took an interest really early on in songwriting and music. It became like a really special outlet for me in like middle school because I just felt like I hadn't really found my place yet in the world. And so I asked my mom and dad to take me to Nashville for my 13th birthday to do like open mic nights with the songs that I had written. They were not good songs, but they took me and I played them around Nashville and I just fell in love with it. And I knew that's what I wanted to do. So I just kept coming back pretty much.
Okay, so like you used to drive from Mississippi to Nashville? Like
about once a month, my mom and I would drive, and eventually got to the point where I homeschooled so I could be in Nashville all the time. And then I moved up here full time by myself in 2019. So, yeah.
Okay. So you've been at it for a while then, like since middle school. So what was kind of like the moment where you decided like, this is what I love, this is what I want to do, like this is I'm going all in on this?
It was definitely like I was playing college bars and I had just turned 13, and it was definitely like the first moment I stepped on stage and felt just this immense comfort that I just did not feel in my own skin in my day-to-day life. And I felt like the just truest version of myself. And that's when I was just like, okay, I think this is what it's supposed to feel like when you find the thing that's for you.
Okay. And college bars at 13, like was there nerves? Like, what was it feeling like when you were on that stage?
I honestly probably should have been a little bit more nervous. I think at 13 you have like this you don't deserve the confidence that you have at 13. I was just wildly confident. I was like, this is the best song ever. Everyone's going to love it. It was not the best song ever, but everyone was super cool. And I think it was weird because I am not like a naturally confident person. And so to find that confidence there, it was a really special thing for me.
I mean, that's pretty cool. Your parents are like that supportive. Obviously, 13-year-old going to college bar singing like to
totally.
It's not, every day that you find parents that would be willing to allow somebody that young to kind of do that.
Exactly. I'm so grateful for them because they've been so supportive every step of the way, and they always have just really wanted their kids to find what they're passionate about, and they've gone full in supporting that, which is awesome.
So, as a 12, 13 middle schooler, like what were you listening to that like inspired you to write songs, and like who were you into?
I was definitely into Taylor Swift pretty early on as far as like just songwriting and learning about songwriting in general. In middle school, I kind of got into my like emo phase, I guess, and I was really into like 21 Pilots and all those guys. So yeah, I was listening to a lot of that. Growing up, my dad played a lot of like Shania Twain, Bryan Adams, so it was like a lot of like early country stuff, but just a little bit of everything. I think Spotify was just kind of on the rise when I was 13, and so I was listening to new stuff every day, which was crazy.
Yeah, I'm older, so it's always funny like talk to people like younger. Like for us, there was no streaming services, none of that. Like we had to like literally go to the store and like buy CDs all the time or like bootleg it and stuff. So just the amount of music that you're exposed to, especially like younger generations, like early on, and I'm sure that's had a lot of influence in you, like in terms of especially listening to your music, like all these different varying styles and genre sounds that you kind of incorporate in your own music.
Totally. I think what's cool about just nowadays is there's really not a lot of rules when it comes to genre. And I think growing up not really adhering to one genre that I listened to because there's so many options really did influence just how I write and the kind of music I write. Sometimes I think it's a helpful and hurtful thing because I think people are like, what kind of music do you make? And I'm like, I'm not quite sure. But yeah, a little bit of everything definitely inspires it.
I would say like, especially like listening to music, like a lot of stuff now, they just kind of gets all pulled into like this nebulous genre called alt pop.
Yes,
like,
exactly.
It's not quite one thing, not quite this, but it's somehow like still.
It's like purgatory.
Yeah.
I fully agree.
So I always like to ask songwriters, like, what's probably your favorite written song? Like, what's one song that you wish that, like, if you had an opportunity to write, that you wish you had written?
Oh my gosh, this is such a hard question. I would probably have wanted to write Ribs by Lorde. My variation of Lorde songs changes, but I'm trying to think of something that was like so iconic and descriptive of like a time period. That's probably one I really would have wanted to write for sure.
So what about Ribs? Like, what like lyric, if you can remember, like that specifically, like struck you when you heard it?
It's more just like the visceral verses. And what I love about Lorde is she takes such unique experiences and doesn't offer any explanation for them. Like, you know, Mom and Dad let me stay home, like just in a random sequence that takes you back to this very like vulnerable place that you didn't even realize you'd experienced or felt before. And I just love the way she sequences her lyrics. I think they're very odd, but they really hit.
Okay. And like you said, you've been making music since, very young. And I think with your Spotify, some of your first songs put out were like 2017.
Yeah.
So kind of like, how's your evolution been like over the time of like songwriting and just your taste in music and just how you approached kind of just creating music in general? I
think for better or for worse, I've definitely grown up with my songs. And I think obviously the music I was putting out in 2017 sounds like I was, 15, 16 years old for sure. But it's really given me like a very public diary to kind of just go to. And I think as I've discovered new music and new sounds, you can hear those switches and in maturity and just different things like that with my music. It's gone from very, very pop to pretty like punk alternative at times when I was really into that phase. And now it's kind of blended into this, now that I feel like I have a better grasp on who I am as a person and as an adult, like a mixture of all of those things, not so extreme in one way or the other.
Okay. And so you started so early, like, did you ever go to college? Like, did you have a backup plan, or has it just been pretty much music from day one? I went to Belmont in Nashville, and I didn't end up graduating, but it did give me a lot of connections just in music, and I made a lot of awesome friends. And it's always important to me to be like the least talented person in the room, and that's definitely the case at Belmont. But honestly, as far as backup plan, no. I was like, I have making this work. This is what I'm going to do. I'm very stubborn in that regard. And thankfully I've not had to, I've worked like different jobs, of course, in between that stuff. But yeah, this has been like this is what I want to do. How do you find like navigating, I guess, kind of like the music industry and streaming, and then obviously having to juggle like the social media aspect of promoting like TikTok and all that? Like how have you found like juggling all that has been for you? I can't say that I'm good at it. I think that part goes back to like the headstrongness, and that I just don't feel like I feel most comfortable using social media is like I'm sitting behind a guitar and playing something. I'm not very good at like self-promotion, I guess. And so the idea of like feeding an algorithm is something I have struggled with, because I think there's a fine line between consistency and kind of stepping on the toes of like natural creativity and the way it flows and the way you want it to flow. So just kind of trying to separate those boxes of like, this is where the job portion is, this is where the artistic creative portion is. And I kind of just have to switch my mind on and off between those things throughout the day. But yeah, I'm definitely not an expert at any of it. So yeah. Nobody is. I think everybody's kind of still all kind of figuring this out together. True. It's always changing. It's always new. And like, you never really know exactly what is the formula, Mm-hmm. So, speaking of that, like, what do you think about like the current state of pop? Because watching last year, it was obviously had a massive moment in terms of like the artists that are getting recognition, that are blowing up, from like, Sabrina Carpenter to Chow Yun to Charlie XCX, people like that are considered kind of all poppy and like have that range, but like they're doing so well in the current kind of state of music. Like, so we kind of think about the state of just that field in general. I think it's a really cool time to be in that field in any aspect. And I think it really goes to show that everything always comes back around in music. It's all very cyclical. And partly why I love even just particularly those three women is that, they made it last year, but they've all been doing this for so long. And so that really like is very close to my heart, because obviously I've been doing this for like 10 years, I guess, technically, if you want to count it that. And so that's really inspiring. And also I just think it harkens back to the thing of like, just make what feels good and is authentic to you. Every like scenario in those examples is like
chronically, that's so specific to them and they stuck with it. And like, I'm sure a lot of people would like listen to a Charlie XCX album like 4 years ago and be like, what the heck? This would never, but it is. And so I really am excited to just be able to kind of create what I want and not worry about if it fits into a certain mold of pop.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely exciting times for pop and like especially artists that like coming up, like you said, that can watch them and see how they've kind of done it, that they've done it, like you said, for 10 years before they consider like best new artist. But it's like, oh, they've actually been putting work for like so long. And it's just like, now you're just kind of coming, now the general audience is kind of just coming around to what they've been doing.
Exactly. Yeah. It's really cool.
So speaking about obviously your EP, How the Good Girls Die, first of all, congratulations on the release and like kind of how's it feel to have this out there to the world and like how people would listen to it and what's the response been so far?
It's always like really bittersweet whenever I put a project out that I've been working on for a minute, because it's like, oh my gosh, yay, it's out, everyone can hear it. But now I'm almost always like, okay, what's the next thing? Just thinking about everything past it. And so it really takes a lot for me to like sit and enjoy it. But the response has been really great. It's definitely a very like experimental EP for me in a lot of ways, and that it's very sonically not cohesive in many ways. And it's just a little bit darker than some of the things I put out recently. But it's been really cool to see people who've supported and have been fans of my music really accept that. And it's made me feel like they accept that side of myself that I'm not always so excited to show people. And that's really what I wanted to do with this project. And I think seeing people relate to that has been also just really encouraging to me in general as a person.
So, I mean, the title, obviously, How the Good Girls Die, titles mean a lot. Well, they used to, I think they still do mean a lot in terms of like just the general themes and messaging you're having with the project. So what's the meaning behind like this title? Like what's the kind of the themes and messaging you're trying to get across? Even though, like you said, it is kind of disjointed, but is there like a general theme?
Definitely. And though it's sonically disjointed, it does tell a linear story. And that's something that's always really, really important to me. And I kind of came up with the idea of How the Good Girls Die, turning 21, 22, now recently 23, like, I was a very sheltered kid, and I think the past few years I've been kind of mourning the loss of an innocence. Like it's like I hit the ground running, and you get to a point where I think in that age it's easy to not only not recognize yourself, but also the people around you not really recognize you either. And you wonder if there's like a way you're ever going to get back to the person you used to be. And I think it's like 50-50. Like you're someone new, things have changed you in life, you're growing up, but also there's still that like kid inside of you. And so it's really just kind of like a anti coming of age. I think I wrote my coming of age album in 2021, and I think this is kind of the like opposite of it. Is like, are we past that already? Is this where do we go from here kind of thing?
Okay, so like when did you know from like this collection of songs that you had like a project, had something that you could put out as a cohesive whole?
I actually like set out last year to just like write a bunch of songs, wanted to put out a project at the end of it, didn't know what they would be. And so Pretty Boys and Body Bag were the first two songs written for that project. And it wasn't until I wrote How the Good Girls Die, it was the last song I wrote for it, that I was like, okay, that's the ending. And I think I've already written the beginning and middle of it. So I wrote How the Good Girls Die like late summer. And yeah, it came out in January. So that's kind of when I was like, okay, this is the story.
And what's been like the kind of creative process for this one? Like, how do you go about? Do you write on your own? Do you collaborate with other people? Like, how do you get the production? How do you get the sound that you want? Like, what's your general process when it comes to making music?
My general day-to-day process when it comes to writing music is very different, just depending on the song, which I love. Particularly with How the Good Girls Die, I sat down every Monday with my friend. His producer name was John the Dropout, and we just wrote whatever we wanted. Like he did the track, I would come up with like concept and write. We just simultaneously work and put it together at the end. And if it was great, it was great. Sometimes it was like, this is too weird, this is not the vibe. So a lot of those songs came from those Mondays with him, which were really, really special to me. And then Body Bag, Born Around More, and Pretty Boys came from just moments of writes with other producers that I came in with a concept, something I wanted to say. I always try to have a story in mind when I go into these writes, and I just know based on that story, and I can kind of see the sound I'm going to want for it, who to bring it to. And thankfully, I had three wonderful producers who were willing to work on those with me.
Okay, and like in terms of like writers, like are you one of those writers that needs to pull from like lived personal experiences, or can you kind of like take yourself out of it and still kind of write a song, a narrative, or whatever?
I can definitely do both, and it's really fun to bring myself out of my shoes and not think about my own life, my own self for a bit. With this project in particular, it's all very like personal and very like real life, down to like this happened on this date with this person kind of thing, which is very cathartic. But I really do love just making up scenarios and things that never happened, and putting myself in a different world in that regard too.
Do you write? Do you write, or have you written for like other people?
I do that a lot. That's like one of my main things. One of my main jobs in Nashville is writing for other artists, and it's really really fun and really special to me because I think it's helped me improve as a writer and as an adaptive writer who can write different styles, and also just it sucks to think about yourself in your own life all the time. Let's think about someone else's. So, yeah.
Okay, and like you mentioned being in Nashville, writing for the people, like Nashville is pretty much like a music hub at this moment, like in terms of especially like songwriters, singer-songwriters, stuff like that. Like so kind of how has the just being in Nashville kind of shaped you and helped you in terms of music, and like kind of what you think about the scene out there and like where it's kind of headed?
I love Nashville in every aspect, and it's grown so much since I started coming here. It grows every year, and I think something that's always been really important to me, and I think being in Nashville in particular has really helped shape, is the storytelling aspect of music, even in pop. There, like, as the pop scene and rock scene has grown here, like I would say, country aspect of the linear storytelling has remained in many ways. And I think that's really helped, my ability to craft a story and keep it intact regardless of genre. But also I think being surrounded just by so many different elements of music and so incredibly talented like live session players, and then people who are like all on like online, like in DAWs and stuff like that. It just is like, I'm definitely, as I'm going back to it, the least talented person in every room I walk into, and that's what the goal was for me. So yeah.
And in terms of like writing, obviously you're, like you said, you have a mix of kind of different sounds and styles on this album. Like I feel like it's a mix of like ballads and then kind of like the more kind of pop bangers, so to say. So like kind of what is your, like, do you prefer ballad writing? Do you prefer kind of like these more upbeat, high tempo songs, or like kind of you just kind of like dabble in each one and just see where it takes you, or like do you have a particular preference?
I feel like just as a individual, I really enjoy like slower, sad songs more. But that might just go back to, I want to fit as many words as I possibly can in a song, and so with slower songs, that kind of gives me the ability to do that, at least with sadder stuff. But I love both. And honestly, I'm on a kick of really upbeat stuff right now, stuff that just feels good. And so I'm, as a songwriter, kind of trying to play a lot with fitting a lot of words into really hooky pop music.
Do you have a favorite song off this EP?
My favorite song is I Don't Know These Days, I think. Okay. Just because it was a reaction. I got a reaction I didn't expect when that song came out. And it was really personal and came from like a really dark time. And I think seeing people's reaction to it now has really brought a different life to it than I ever expected.
Okay. So you had come across like our email and stuff, like I think maybe later last year, and I forget exactly which song it was, but I definitely remember hearing it like, okay, like there's something very interesting here and going on. So like I wanted to talk to you about like some of your lyrics that you've written.
Yeah.
In, like some of these songs. Like first I want to talk about like Body Bag. Basically you're saying like the party's over, can't find another. You still wear my best dress. I wear it like a body bag. Yeah. So like what's the meaning behind, I guess?
Body bag is kind of about this cycle I got into, going out on Friday nights, just waiting to kind of ruin my life again through some way or another every Friday. And I had this, it wasn't actually a dress, but I had this like black top and black jeans I'd wear like all the time. Like I had different versions of it for every Friday. And I felt like I was putting on my uniform to like basically go to, just make things worse again. And so it's kind of like saying like, I know this is dumb and stupid and really bad for me, but I'm doing it anyway. And so I'm just going to wear this little black dress like it's a body bag.
Yeah. Okay. That's funny. wear my uniform. That's funny because that's what me and my friends used to say whenever we go out. Like, yo, all right, time to put
Oh,
on
the uniform. Everyone has their going out uniform. You have to.
Yeah.
It's a staple. Yeah.
All right, and the next song we'll talk about like Pretty Boys. You Want Me, but just to sweeten up your Pretty Boy blues. Like, what is exactly like Pretty Boy blues? Like, what are you trying to say there?
That was kind of like a personal little, as the guy I'm referencing in this song, I felt like he wanted me just to kind of add to his like charm and allure and, be add to a different version of him kind of thing. And so I felt like I was just kind of there as like one of the options of accessory to the standard pretty boy, I guess.
Okay. And last song I want, Born to Want More. This was a little longer. I was like, was I born to want more? Was I made to not be made for anyone? Because I'm not sure. If it's good, then it's gone. Why do I keep holding on? Like, I thought that was like a very kind of poignant little verse you had there. And like, there's a lot going on there. So kind of what was your thinking when you wrote this one?
Yeah, so I came in with the idea of Born to Want More, and I'd written a lot of it before I brought it to my producer friend, John Townsend. And I wrote it after this guy that I was kind of dating was kind of like, hey, I met someone else. And I was like, that's awesome. Congrats for you. I didn't know how to react. I was like, yay, And I think I was just at a point where I felt like, I've been told my whole life there's someone out there for me. What if there isn't? What if that's just what I was born to be, is perpetually wanting? And, every time I would get a glimpse of something good, I felt like it was fleeting. And I don't think that's true for people, but in that moment of wallowing, I was like, this is for sure what my life is.
So when you have like situations like this happen and come up, like, do you immediately go into your head kind of like, oh, I have a song here, I have something I can write here, or like what do you?
Yeah, I think it's become my method of dealing with things. In many ways, it's my therapy. Like, the instant something happens, I kind of go home and write about my day and whatever happened. And just in writing, I feel like I come across lyrics or things that I'm like, this is a song, just in kind of, it truly is just a diary kind of situation for me.
Okay. I can definitely see that. Like I said, like, I really enjoyed your songwriting here. And I think you had some like very poignant lyrics and verses here that like really stood out.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
So how's the response been, from I guess your followers, fans, your people in general? Like, how's it been to this project?
The response has been really great. I was really nervous putting this out because it is a darker theme, and also just, it was me kind of saying like, I really don't know where I am at in this point in my life, and this music's going to reflect that both lyrically and sonically. And I think having fans that have followed me since I was, 15, 16, hearing very PG, lighthearted music, I was a little worried about what people would think, but I've gotten nothing but awesome responses about it, and people like connecting to particular lyrics and particular scenarios that I was really worried. I was like, what if I am just insane and the only person who's ever felt this? But that's kind of the fun part of releasing music, is that you learn that you've never had an original experience in your life, and it's very comforting. So it's been good, and I'm really excited to just continue on after this one.
Do you have a favorite lyric that you've written off of this project? Like, do you have one that like stood out to you?
Dang. I really like the line, I'm full of rage and diet drinks, followed the scripts in 17. I watch my friends all fall in love. I'm lucky if I fall asleep. Just because I think it's like very like niche teenage girl experiences. Yeah. Like, that's just, I think I've gotten a lot of comments about that one, which has been cool.
Okay. And I guess like kind of looking back to, like you said, some of your earlier songs, do you go back and listen to those songs and maybe like, I don't know, like a lot of people when they are creatives, like you kind of look at your old work and maybe cringe a little bit, think like, like I could have been so much better. Like, yeah, do you like notice stuff like that?
Definitely. I think, as you grow, you're going to look back at your old stuff and be like, what the heck? That's so bad. Especially starting so young. I was like, that was terrible. That was terrible. But I leave those songs up, and there are a few songs I have taken down just because I'm like, I don't want this on my page. But I left a lot of them up because I think it is cool to have that linear journey. And, I know I'm going to look back on stuff at this project I already have and been like, oh, I could have done this differently. I should have done this differently. But it's a reflection of that time period. And I think the mistakes in it are very important at the same time to tell that story.
Okay. So what's the future? Like, what's holding, like, what's next for you after this? Are you going to maybe hit the road a little bit, play this album, like get back to writing, create new stuff? Do you is this building up to a full length album? What's holding the future for you?
Yeah, so I already have the next few singles planned out for the summer that I'm really excited about, and are going to kind of lead into a different chapter, I guess, that is very different than How the Good Girls Die in many ways. And it's definitely the goal to lead up to a full album. I love albums. I love telling stories. I love singles just literally being a footpath to those things. So definitely, hopefully another album by the end of this year or next year. And touring is my favorite thing in the world. Desperately trying to figure out ways to make that happen this year and play these songs live as much as possible.
All right. Well, I think you have a great project on your hands here. I like pretty much everything I heard. I think the songwriting is phenomenal. I think, you kind of have definitely something here, and I think you build into towards something even better. So we're very excited to see kind of what you do in the future.
I really appreciate that. Thank you so much.